Yay! We made it.
I think we're on. Are we on? Let's see. Yes. All right. So we are here today. We had a few technical snafus, but we made it.
Yeah.
I'm here with Gigi. This is our first time doing this with both of us live at the same time. So thank you for waiting. Those of you
Well, I
who
mean, we've done it months ago, right? Or a
we did it
year.
together in person.
Oh, that's right. We haven't done it separate. I'm sitting here looking at the Lake Zurich. It's beautiful, and this was out. So,
Yeah, so we are going live to talk about, let me find my notes here. I've been in technical Zoom land. Okay, how to stop putting your needs and desires on the back burner in your relationship and finally get what you want. So Gigi has been, as many of you know, coaching for about 36 years and was known as an international relationship and communication expert for many, many of those years and still is. Had books published on the topic in several countries in Europe. So I'm really, really excited. She's influenced my relationship so much, my marriage of, my relationship of almost 7 years now. And so I'm really, really excited to bring some things on the topic of relationship. I've been hearing from a lot of you that that's something that you want to hear more about. So as we are beginning here, since we did have some technical snafus, would you guys comment below and just let me know where you're tuning in from? Let me know, I'm guessing you're in a relationship if you're watching this, but maybe not. Maybe you're looking for a relationship. So just kind of tell us, what's your current relationship status and where are you tuning in from today? And while I am waiting, I just want to share a couple quick things before we dive in. So we're going to be making some generalizations today in terms of speaking about gender and using terms like men and women and masculine and feminine. So we really want to, of course, include everyone of all gender identifications, but Gigi's years of experience are primarily with women who identify as women and men who identify as men. And it's also just easier in the sense of talking about these things to use those generalizations. She's worked with many same-sex partners, and in her experience, though, in those relationships as well, so if you are in a same-sex partnership, typically we find that one person does identify more with what we would call the masculine energy, and the other one would identify more with what we would call the feminine energy. So what we share today is really based on Gigi's observations and experience of working with thousands of people in her career over the last, many decades. So Gigi, I know you always say, take what works for you and leave what doesn't. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
because there'll be a lot of things that we talk about that maybe you don't agree with, and that's perfectly fine. I always say don't agree and don't disagree. If you can stay curious while we're talking, and then see if there's something that you think, oh, wow, that's interesting. I've never thought of it like that. Or maybe I'd like to go try that. Then do that, go out and try it and see if it works. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, then please throw it away. We're not trying to convince anyone. We're sharing some observations, and of course they're not written in stone by any means.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of people tuning in the chat. Thank you all for saying hello. Helena says hello. Love this topic. She's watching from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Nice.
Been seeing a guy for the last 2.5 months, but we're not going steady. Rosie Kennedy's in Austin, Texas. Who else? Go ahead and let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from, and are you in a relationship currently or looking for a relationship, just so we have an idea. So today's topic really came out of, this conversation around what happens in relationship. A lot of times, we're in a relationship and we are kind of going through life together, right? And we end up sort of putting some of our own needs and desires on the back burner. Maybe it's because you don't want to rock the boat, things aren't maybe as steady as you would like, or you just don't want to kind of create any kind of conflict or ripples. Maybe you're just so busy that there never seems to be the right time. We hear that a lot, especially from like the moms that we work with, or, busy career women. Or you may have children or other responsibilities that take precedence time and time again. So the challenge with this is that, if this continues on and you keep putting your needs and desires on the back burner, then what happens, Gigi, over time?
Well, normally what happens is resentment builds, or there's a feeling of, not being seen in the relationship, and also feeling like you can't really connect with your partner, because what happens is people start to grow apart when they're not able to share, when they're not able to communicate.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
so we don't want that. And it seems like not a big deal in the moment, right? But what happens is it is this like, excuse me, building over time. And
Yeah.
so, but people get uncomfortable. They're like, how do I approach asking for what I want?
Mhm.
So, what would you say, Gigi, and if someone's like, I guess we probably should take some kind of real example, right? So, I really would love to travel more.
Mhm.
And maybe my partner doesn't seem like he wants to, or we just haven't been able to have a, good conversation about that, or maybe I've brought it up a little bit and it hasn't really been met with, a great reception.
Mhm.
So how do I, as mostly probably we have women watching, it sounds like. We've got Rosie is married 18 years to an entrepreneur, so knows all about this. Jennifer Jones is in a wonderful committed relationship, but knows there's always room for growth.
Mhm.
So yeah, how would someone approach this? We're just using travel as an example, you guys. It could be anything that you want to talk about.
Well, I'm not going to go directly to the travel scenario. I'm more going to say what's really important in these types of situations is you have to get really clear about what you want. Because when you say, let's say travel, that's very general, right?
Mhm.
And there's something you're wanting. And so I think it's so important is you have to dig deep and see what is it you're wanting. Maybe you want to travel because you want to have more time with your mate, or maybe you want to travel because you've been wanting to travel for a long time to this specific place. You want to take a cooking class or whatever. So the clarity is really important, because what happens is when we're super vague, then it's really difficult sometimes for someone to understand what we want.
Mhm.
One way to think about this is to think about what you don't want, I always say. So if you sit down and you go, what I really don't want is to never travel and stay at home all the time. I really want to have experiences, and those experiences are, and then I really get clear about what that is.
Yeah, I love that. So getting really clear about what you want. Now, what about a lot of women I talk to are like, but yeah, he should know, right? And I'm talking mostly to women, maybe men think the same thing, but shouldn't he already know? Or like, I hinted at this thing, or I said this thing one time and he didn't listen, you know?
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
He doesn't know. Yeah. And even if you've hinted, you might have to hint a few times. And the way you approach it is hugely important. So this is, it's funny. It's a simple thing of how do I ask that I want to go travel more? But the truth is there's complexity to the communication, because we all know we can ask for something and it comes across as commanding, or we can ask for something and it comes across as a request, a playful like request without an expectation, right? So that's what you really want to start to see is how can you start to describe what you want in such a way that it's more like a request, and to understand that you have to do that. He doesn't know, he'll never know. Of course, some men, again, we're generalizing, some men have been, they've learned more and then they understand, or maybe they think of it first, but that came through practice normally, right?
I'd love to hear actually from you, those of you watching, what is something that you want in your relationship that you feel like you've been putting on the back burner? That way we're not just making up examples
Yeah,
here,
I
but
think
we're actually using you guys examples.
yours
Until I
examples.
hear from you guys, so go ahead and type that in the chat right now. Until I hear from you, I have another example we could use, Gigi, which is like like in terms of how you want to celebrate your birthday, let's say, or what
Mhm,
you want for your birthday, how you want to celebrate. And
mhm.
maybe you've kind of told him things over the years, or you know what I'm saying, over the months, and you feel like, oh, and then your birthday gets there and he doesn't maybe do it the way you thought he should do it.
Yeah.
That's a silly example, but what I get a lot of times again from women is like, he should just know I've said this so many times.
Yeah.
So how would you say someone should approach something like that?
Well, first of all, look at the times when he has done something really great for your birthday. Maybe there was a certain gift he gave you or something that he did, and bring him back to that, because always in communication and connection, and especially when you're requesting, is you also want to acknowledge, you want to start the conversation and build a bridge, you know,
Mhm.
and that bridge is through acknowledgement. And you can just say, remember that time when we went on my birthday and you surprised me with that? That was so special to me. You know, it really meant a lot to me. And, I am thinking about my birthday and I would love to do this. And I'm just curious, you know, is that something you would like to do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
So in that,
So getting really clear about what you want is still number one, right? So like your birthday's coming up, it's like realizing you have an expectation. I think that's one of the things with women I see a
right.
lot is they have an expectation and they kind of don't admit it to themselves, so
Yeah.
they don't really look at it. And then the day comes and they're like, well, he should have known, right? So it's like you have an expectation or you have something you would really like. So instead of waiting around, you're saying get clear on what that is that you want.
Mhm.
And then when you go to have the communication with him, acknowledge him first.
Mm.
And maybe you can acknowledge something from a previous birthday, or maybe you just need to acknowledge something else he's done
Yeah.
recently that
Yeah.
that really you're grateful for, that, you know, touched you in some way or something like that.
Yeah.
And that, like you're saying, and I always, you know, I've learned so much of this from you over the years and applied it in my relationship. I always tell people what you say about like focus on building that bridge in
Mm.
general. So let's just take it away from the birthday example for a second, is like to use acknowledgement frequently over, let's say, a 30-day period before you go and start asking for a bunch of things that you want.
Yeah.
Because it starts to build that bridge of trust with a man where normally a lot of times they'll feel like maybe you pick or you're always asking or complaining about what you don't want, right? And so
Yeah.
that's been such a huge tool, huge skill in my relationship, is really using a lot of acknowledgement. And then, like you said, that built this bridge of trust to where then when I make requests, it's like, yeah, we have this great rapport already. I don't know how else to describe it.
And also you have good energy between you because that's what you're building. You're not doing to manipulate and then try to get what you want, because a lot of people listen to that and they think, oh, that's what you're doing. No, what you're doing is you're looking to see how to build the system of your relationship so it has strong good feelings and you feel good with each other and it's good energy. And one way you do that is by appreciation, not acknowledgement, because you know, with the acknowledgement, that's a whole nother conversation. But so often we think things and we appreciate things in our mind about our partners, but we don't verbally say it. And when you describe it and you share, then there's this feeling of like the other person feels seen
Yeah.
because you really are describing what they do that you so appreciate about them.
Yeah. And the objections I hear to this, and we're getting a little off topic, but this is actually, I think, a really important piece
Yeah.
of asking for what you want or getting more of what you want is this piece of acknowledgement. And what I'll hear from women a lot of times is either A, well, I'm just not really verbally like
Right.
that, right? I just don't think of it. Or B, my partner isn't really
Yeah.
like that. Like they don't really resonate with that.
Yeah.
What would you say to those two things?
I would say baloney, baloney. So
Just
that
no beating around the bush there.
it's like this, you know, in business, if we want a result, we have to do certain things to get that result. And often in business, we don't have an issue with that, whatever. In our personal life, we somehow think we shouldn't have to do that.
Mm,
Yeah, we want results, but oh, you know, I'm not that verbal, so I'm not gonna. But that's an excuse. The truth is that communication and connection in any part of your life is huge, because I think, you know, we always talk about this. When things break down in your private life, it affects every part of your life. It affects when you go to work. And so, and if your partner is like, a lot of times a partner will say, what are you doing? Because again, they don't maybe not trust at first, like, why are you doing this? What do you want? Kind of thing.
yeah.
And so that's where the practice of pattern of communication is, just to be simple, you know, and just say, it's not to make a big to do out of it, especially if it's somebody who doesn't really, is a little bit uncomfortable with acknowledgement, but just to say, you know, today when we did that together, I felt that was so much fun. And verbally, and there's nothing wrong, then that starts to bridge that communication of sharing the good parts of your relationship.
Yeah, I'm
So
like a pro at this now. So you guys, if you need
you are
ideas,
one of
you
us.
can my relationship every day,
Your
right?
partner loves it.
It's really taking that moment though.
Yeah,
And my husband will take out the trash. Baby, thank you so much for doing that. I really
yeah,
appreciate that you think of that every week and I don't have to think about it. Right. So it's something specific that your partner did. And it's not again a big thing. And like she said, maybe they're a little like, what is she doing at first if you haven't really done that? But over time, it really does start to build this bridge of connection. And even if they act like they don't
like,
care,
yeah, yeah,
it does get to them underneath. Now,
yeah,
really important with acknowledgement is it has to be authentic. You can't be
absolutely.
just like making something up or trying to manipulate or being, ingenuine in some way.
Mhm.
It does have to be authentic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to cover that just because I think it's such an important piece of starting to build that bridge. And the other thing acknowledgement does, you guys, is it's going to have you start to focus on what's working instead of what's not working
Yeah.
in your relationship. And that is really, really powerful. Then you can start to look at, okay, what do I want? And then bringing that to someone. So Helena said, I want a more steady relationship with the guy I see, but he's already told me early on he isn't ready for commitment at the moment. Oh, steady. I want a more steady relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you can't change somebody, right? You can only make a request, and then again, if that's really important to you and you are in the relationship and he says he's not ready for that, then you have to see, is that right for you to be in there too? You really have to see that. But if you think you're going to change it, you can't. All you can do is make a request. Listen, I would love, for us to really be in a committed relationship and love for us to spend, time together like that. And then leave it at that. No expectation, no anything. Then you've made your request, or, I see us together and enjoying ourselves, and I've really enjoyed our time together. And then you leave it at that. So, because again, you're not going to be able to change anything there. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can
And I
only
think then you give it an amount of time in
time.
yourself where
Yeah,
you're like, I know I want commitment.
yeah,
I'll give this 3 months or whatever and
yeah,
see. And, I will state that request and I'll just leave it and I'll enjoy the time. But if in 3 months that's not changing, then I know it's time for me to move on, because what women will do so much of the time is they'll just stay in and think, oh, and, something's going to change. And we have a guide coming out this week. I think it's this week or next week, called Calling in the One. And it's the process for any of you who are single or any of you who maybe, you know you're really looking for that committed partnership. It's the process Gigi walked me through when I was ready to meet my life partner, that I followed. And then, he showed up 6 months later. So I think it really was incredible and really worked. And so it's a fun like worksheet and exercise you can do. So if you want that process, just put Calling in the One in the chat and we'll make sure to get that to you, even if you're watching the replay, or you can send me a direct message here on Facebook as well if you're watching on Facebook. So let's get back to other, is there anyone else, by the way, in the chat that wants to share what is something that you feel like you've been putting on the back burner, or need or a desire in your relationship that you've been putting on the back burner that we can use as an example here to share, how you can approach that. But just to go back while we're waiting, Gigi, to what you were saying, you said using acknowledgement, right, to build a bridge of trust, getting clear on exactly what you want and specifically what you want, and then communicating that. So is there anything else around all of that you want to share?
The travel one, like if you've always wanted to go to Greece and, there's a particular island and you just share, you go and you get curious and talk, and then just say, I've been thinking about something. This is something that it's been a dream forever, something I'd really love to do. And I'd really love to do it in the next year. What are your thoughts on that? What do you see? Now, at first the partner might say, I don't see any way, or blah, blah, blah. And you just listen, and you say, it's really important to me. And I was thinking, maybe if it's a financial thing, is thinking like, how could I create a project or something, and fund that? I was thinking that you and I could think about that and we could do that together. And then you leave it, right? And you wait. And then later you can bring up the conversation, or you can think about it and maybe bring the ideas. So this is not a go in, get what you want. And, if this is something that has been sitting in you for a while, it's a process for that dialogue and that communication. But the important thing is to go in with a dialogue and with curiosity and acknowledgement, like we talked about, and to share, and share what's on your heart there, and think about the different ways that you see it could happen. And then just say, think about it. You think about it and see, is there a way that you think we could do it? And so what happens there is when you ask for, think about it and see if there's a way you can do it, you've created a collaborative situation there, instead of
Yeah.
going saying, I really want to go to Greece and I've been waiting for years. We haven't gone yet. And, I'm really frustrated about it.
This is so much of what I've learned from you also that we apply every single day in our relationship, but especially going into any kind of challenging conversations, is this idea of being on the same team. And so much of the time I see that people in relationship, it's totally unconscious, but they almost like put themselves on different teams. They're like, I want this thing, my partner hasn't done it, or they've said they don't want that, or whatever. And they're like, so we're on, in their mind, kind of on opposite teams. Of course, they know they're in a relationship on the same team, but it's like we're on two sides of this issue, and I want to get what I want and they want something different, right? But there's something in the mentality, for me anyway, and how we've applied this, of like, your partner, especially men, and again, we're using generalizations here with genders, but they want to be on your team, right? And there's a great feeling when it's like, it's stating what you want, like you said, but also, like you said, it's like, how could we do this? And then it's not going to be a thing necessarily, like you said, in one conversation. It may be sometimes when you leave those open-ended loops with, especially with a man, they like sit with it for a while and it's in the back of their minds and they come back. And it's not a one and done kind of thing.
Because they also want to be your hero, and they really, really, really do. And sometimes that waiting and patiently and letting him think about it, letting him solve it, and let him come back and share with you. And then you're curious again, so it becomes a dialogue. And in this, and the approach of you are on each other's team, and the same thing, he wants to be on your team, but also it's so rewarding when he feels like you're on his team, that you're there.
I will even say things to my husband like, I'm on, like, whatever he wants. Also, by the way, if you're going and asking for what you want, it's great to also look to see what does your partner want and go out to support them in getting it. And I'll say things to him like, I'm on your team to make that happen. Or we're, I know that we're on the same team here and we both want to get what we both are out to get each other what we want. And, or we both, I just saying things like that, that really create that feeling in the dynamic of like, oh, we are a team. And even if you're having conflict in an area, by the way, it's a side note, but you can approach it the same way. So we always have this underlying belief that we're on the same team, even if it looks like we're on opposite sides of something, and that there is a win-win that we can come to on the other side.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So we have lots of calling in the ones in the chat. Great. We'll get that over to you. The guide, make sure you friend requested me. Let's see if we're not already friends. Like Connie, if you're still watching, I just sent you a friend request. Make sure you friend request me because otherwise I won't be able to message it to you. Okay. So we've covered the example of, let's say you want to travel more. Now, what if, someone kind of brings something to their partner and they use acknowledgement, they've been using acknowledgement, they say what they want, they leave it for a little while and the partner doesn't come back, or it never really, and then they're just like, this isn't working, my partner is totally, they don't want to travel, I do, it's just, that's it. What do they do?
So like the Greece situation then. So if it's something really important to you, then the other thing is maybe you have to travel to Greece by yourself. Seriously, you have to go for what you want. You can't give up. You can't give up for the other person. But, again, the way you approach that is you can just go back and say, hey, we had talked about this and it's something that is really important to me. It's something that, mean to me, this is the year I wanted to do this because of my age. We all have those dreams, right? And you know, I know we haven't talked about this in a while, but is it something that you're interested in doing? And if the partner says, no, I really don't, then you have to say, then it's something's really important. And how could we work this out? Because I would really love to do it. It's
Yeah.
something that's on my heart. It's something that, and I don't want to do it. I want to do it so it works for both of us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'll create the money or I have the money or whatever. And so I would love, you know, your support, you know, so, and then you dialogue about that again. You talk about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
mhm.
I've had situations like this also in my relationship. I think one of them did involve travel early on where, you know, in our family, we've always spent a lot of time in Europe. Gigi's in Europe right now, in Switzerland. I'm about
Yeah.
to go join her to lead some retreats in Greece. And so Europe's always been a big part of our lives. Many of our clients are European. And so for me, going and spending a few weeks every summer in Europe has always been a part of my life. I work, you know, we work online. And I remember early on for my husband, boyfriend at the time, it was like, he wanted to travel more. He said he did, but it was like he could not understand this idea of like going for a few weeks and continuing to work while you were over there. He just, the concept was very out of the box for him. He was like, you either go and you're on vacation or you're at home, right? So there was this trip, and I think it was your birthday party, Gigi, in Spain.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm definitely going. I really want to go, you know? And of course, at first it was like, I would love for you to come with me and whatever, whatever. And I don't know, you know, what the reasons were, I can't remember. But there, I believe there did come a point where I finally said, listen, I really want to do this. And, you know, I'd love for you to come with me. If you really don't want to come, I would really like to go anyway. And how could we make, kind of like Gigi said, how can we make that work? That it feels good for both of us. And what ended up happening in this case is he was like, no, I really want to come too. And then it became a dialogue of, okay, great. Like, what are the concerns? How do we make this happen?
Yeah.
So that can sometimes happen. It's not that you bank on it happening, because I would have been perfectly happy to just go.
Yeah.
And this is a really critical piece that I see with many women, is that they don't take this last step of
Mhm.
really going for what they want, even if the partner isn't on board, not on board, but even if they don't want to come with them, or even if they don't want to, and we're using travel as an example, or they don't want to go to that party, or they don't want to, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And then again, resentment builds, and then it
Mhm.
becomes this thing that festers over time.
Right. Right.
So it really is about you also as the woman taking responsibility for your own, like what you want, right?
Yeah. 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 And going for what you want. And when you do that, then what happens is, you know, sometimes that's uncomfortable, but you do it in a way so there's harmony, not so you're putting it out there and I'm going to do this. No, you don't want to. It's just, again, this from my heart. This is really, really important to me. Yeah. I love you. And, you know, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks or whatever. And
There's an
uh,
open invitation. I'd love for you to
yeah,
come. I love
exactly.
you. I'm, you know, and
Yeah.
this is something I need and want to do for me.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'd love to know if there are any questions, and we'll wrap up here in just a few minutes, but any questions, anything else, you know, we've used travel just because it's the scenario that popped into my mind. But are there things in your relationship that you want, that you feel like you have been putting on the back burner? Gigi, did you have anything else specific, or do you want to just see if there's any questions?
I think just see if there are any other questions. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. So Lindsay said communication is important, but understanding of that communication and what it means is more important.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, so we want to share before we close here, for those of you who've been watching, so some of you, it sounds like, are single, because we got some people saying, calling in the one, you want that guide, which we're going to send to you. And some of you are in a relationship. So if you're in a relationship and you are feeling a little stuck, or you feel like you are putting your needs and desires on the back burner, or maybe, you know, a lot of times we talk to people that are in a relationship and they're just busy in their life, and it feels like everything else is taking priority over the relationship. And it's not that anything's like wrong per se, but they're just like, I know this should be a bigger priority, or I know we could have more like connection. And
Yeah, a lot of times people have lost a spark, you know,
yeah,
I think it's that lost connection. And that's when you're busy, that's easy for that to happen. And they don't know how to navigate it to come back together again. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you have recurring conflicts, or maybe your sex life has stagnated a little bit. Whatever, if you relate to any of those, then just say in the chat, I relate. If you're in a relationship, I relate. And then on the single side, if you are single and you're really ready to call in a great relationship, but that kind of either you're dating and it's just not really happening, or it keeps falling to the bottom of your priority list and you're not even really putting time or energy into it. And maybe you have some sense that there's some things like patterns or beliefs or something getting in the way. And you're really ready to do what it takes to call that person in. So either one of those buckets, if you relate, you can type I relate in the chat. And we are hosting an event, actually live event here in Austin. Gigi's in Europe right now, but I'm in Austin, called Level Up Relationship. And that is going to be in November 4th through 6th here in Austin, Texas. And highly, highly recommend you guys check it out. I'm going to put the link in the chat, or you can go to followyouraliveness.com/relationship. And so this is a 3-day intensive event. Gigi hasn't led an event on relationship in a few years at least, right?
Yeah, wow.
So I'm so excited because, again, this topic has so changed my life. Everything that I've learned from Gigi over the years, my husband will even say, like, thank you to Gigi, because so many of these skills that I've learned and he's learned through me have really created an incredible connection for us. And I really want that for everyone, truly. When I meet people, I'm like, this is so good. Like, you can have your person and you can have, of course you're going to have conflicts or things or, challenges that come up, but to have that relationship that is so enriching for you and for you both, then instead of it pulling on you and being the drain in your life, right? Like we talked about at the beginning of the live today, if your relationship is in conflict or there's things going on, it's going to impact the other parts of your life. The opposite is also true in my experience. If your relationship is like going incredible and it's so enriching, then all the other parts of your life feel better, easier, they flow more, right? So if you're curious about creating that kind of relationship, I call it like a 10 out of 10 relationship, where you would rank it a 10 out of 10, then comment level up in the chat, or go to followyouraliveness.com/relationship to read all about that event. We would love to meet you guys in person. Yeah, it's limited to 25 people, so it's a really intimate event, and we're so excited about it. Anything you want to share about that, Gigi?
Just again, like you said, if it's a topic that you've been putting off, take the time and come. It will, and I mean this, it will change the way you approach relationship, and your relationships will be so much stronger, and it'll really change your life. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, and often, I mean, for people, this is the big one. It's like the career is a big one, and this is the other one. And a lot of times when you clear things up, we were just talking to one of my sisters, one of your daughters, about this. She said, like, a lot of times when you clear something up in relationship, it's like things clear up in your career or business too. Absolutely. It's really interesting. So if you have that sense that this is just a key piece for you, whether it is, again, calling in that person or deepening, strengthening, bringing that spark back in your current relationship, then we would love to meet you all there. And you can always private message me if you have any questions about it or anything like that. Okay, well, thank you, Gigi, for being on from Europe.
Thank
We're
you.
about to meet up next week in Greece. I cannot wait. And we're actually going to be coming to you guys. I know. We're going to be coming to you guys with a couple of lives from Greece. So next week, we are going to do one on, we're actually going to do some case studies. So we're going to be there with many of our longtime clients at our retreats. And so next week's topic is case studies of how they stopped putting their business dreams on hold and finally found the confidence to go for it. We're really excited. I think it's going to be on a Wednesday. It's a slightly different day and time, so just keep an eye on your emails and event invitations here on Facebook for that. And then the following week, we're going to do one on dreaming of traveling while growing your business. 3 steps to make your dream a reality. So both of those are going to be live from Greece, which we thought would be just such a fun backdrop for them. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us live, or if you're watching the replay.
Yeah.
Suzanne just jumped on. What? Suzanne Boitius just jumped on. Hi. She'll be with us in Greece as well. So thank you for joining live or watching the replay, and we will see you all next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.